Yes, ma'am. That's no problem. Okay, otherwise, are we ready? I had my volume on. I just turned it off. Right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the Rapid City Area Schools first meeting of the year. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for coming. Those of you that are watching us live and those that will watch recorded, we appreciate. Now, I do hear that. We appreciate you being here. All right. Can you still hear me? She still can hear me. Testing. 1, 2, and 3. One moment, please, until we address the technical difficulties. All right, okay. We've got all kind of things going on right now. Oh. Sorry. All right. All right. Are we, maybe I should start with that next meeting. Is everybody's computer ready? All right. Are we ready?
Yeah, the volume on the computer itself.
He's helping her.
Okay. All right, Shirley, let's go for a roll call, please. Here.
Christine Stephenson.
Here.
Donna Moore.
Here.
Michael Berkland.
Here.
Walt Schwan.
Here.
Katie Urban.
Here.
Amelia Schaefbauer. Arabella Scott. And Maricela Brantis.
And I'm here.
Jamie Carr and Troy Carr.
Here.
All right.
Jamie, clap at me.
It's fine.
Okay.
All kind of things going on the first of the year. We've been on vacation, so
Yeah, we're rusty.
We're rusty. A little. All right, we do not have an invocation representative, so we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ask everyone to stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, sharing this success, Dr. Strasser.
Good evening, board. Tonight, we're going to recognize our student volunteers of the semester. We have one for each of our high schools, including Rapid City Alternative Academy. And that's where I'm gonna start tonight. I'm gonna introduce to you Brody Gill from RCAA. Brody deserves to be recognized as a student volunteer this semester for his dedicated and impactful work as the student manager of the RCAS Feeding South Dakota Food Pantry. His commitment to the pantry goes beyond typical volunteer tasks, Brody takes responsibility for checking temperatures, leading stocking efforts, keeping accurate records, training new volunteers, and warmly welcoming each guest. Through his leadership, the pantry operates smoothly and effectively, providing vital food resources to the community members in need. In addition to his role at the pantry, Brody serves on several aspects of the Rapid City Youth City Council, bringing an open and positive attitude to each initiative. His consistent service not only enhances the pantry's ability to support families, but also sets an example of compassion and dedication, making a meaningful impact on the lives of those he serves and inspiring others to contribute to their community. Brody is not only an outstanding volunteer, but also a dedicated learner with a genuine passion for exploring life's many facets. His curiosity and thoughtful approach make him a joy to talk with, as he often brings unique insights and perspectives to conversations. This love for learning and discovery enriches his volunteer work as he approaches every task with a sense of purpose and a desire to make a real difference. Brody's depth of character, combined with his commitment to service, makes him an inspiring role model to his peers and a true asset to our community. So board members, Brody Gill, Rapid City Alternative Academy.
Put the short one in the middle. Kind of awkwardly. Perfect, thank you.
From Stevens High School, we have Haley Cunningham. Haley has been an amazing jumpstart to our peer tutoring program through NHS. She has recruited volunteers that staff a booth in the library every day, so students know there is someone to help them consistently. Teachers and counselors now have solid help they can offer to struggling students. She also has fun and creative ideas for helping the community and recently partnered with Horace Mann Elementary to host a book drive for their students soon. Haley is motivated and inspiring, and others follow her lead. Haley has led the tutoring effort without being asked. In fact, she approached us about getting it organized and forming a group on the Band app to schedule volunteers, which has been really awesome. And board, again, Haley Cunningham from Stevens High School. And I think I did this wrong in the sense of we have these plaques for them as well where their names will be on. So I'll be.
I gave it to the student. Thanks. I know what to do.
All right. From Central High School, we have Amelia Schaefbauer. Amelia Schaefbauer has a heart for service to others, and her record shows exactly that. She has served on the Youth City Council for the last 2 years and even engaged in Youth City Council committee work prior to that. During that time, she has implemented a variety of projects that improve the overall health and well-being of community members. Amelia has supported the Boredom Bag Project, the Tough Enough to Wear Pink campaign with Monument Health, a Positive Popsicle project, a Positive Post-it Notes project, a kite flying project with the Optimist Club, a community wellness bingo project, and a mental health Easter egg project. I am quite certain that Amelia has been a community servant since she was very young. She has developed strength and confidence in her advocacy, and community actions during the past 2 years as she has served on the youth city council. She is truly a role model in our community and has logged more than 319 hours of community service in the past 2.5 years. At this point, I do not believe there is a week that goes by that Amelia does not serve others within her school or her community. Amelia is like the Energizer Bunny. She keeps going and going and going. She is dedicated to helping others and is willing to have hard conversations and shift her energy when adjustments are needed. Her warm and welcoming personality creates an environment that encourages others to engage in the work that she is doing as well. We are proud of Amelia and the work that she has done. So from Central High School, Amelia Schaefbauer. And that is our sharing the success for tonight.
All right, thank you so very much. Board members, any comments? Thing like to say? No? Well, okay, go ahead.
We'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Somebody you should say
Yeah.
something. I think we're all thinking the same thing.
Yeah, we're just so proud of those of you that are here tonight and celebrate your accomplishments. Just keep up the good work and hopefully it's incentive and being inspiring to your other fellow students to volunteer and help out where they can. So thank you very much. We're proud of you. All right, persons wishing to address the school board, there is one, Mrs. Thompson. And you have 5 minutes.
Only 5 minutes. I should take up 4 or 5 people's times, right? I don't have that much to say. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. And I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools. Tonight, I'd like to talk about the US PI. I'm SD PI, South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. But US Parents Involved in Education has an award that they award every month. And it's called the Millstone of the Month. The Millstone of the Month award goes to the person involved in government schools who has committed the most egregious acts against children. And it's from the Bible, inspired by the Bible, Luke 17:2. It would be better for him if a millstone is hung around his neck and they thrown into the sea than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. So that's the inspiration for this award. This month, the award goes to a radical leftist appointed by Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to a state education task force. And his name is Brian Lazinski. He's an associate professor of urban and multicultural education in Minnesota and is helping to write the statewide implementation framework for their ethnic studies standards. Among other things, Lazinski has called for the overthrow of the United States. For far too long, our children have been at the mercy of ideologues like Brian Lazinski, who teach them to hate America, split into identity groups, embrace all forms of radicalism, and be at odds with their parents. Lazinski also wants to see America's system of government overthrown, done with, deconstructed. So I guess he's a radical Marxist, and it's unfortunate that he's been put into such a position of influence. So he richly deserves that award. I hope we don't have anybody like that in our system. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board response? This time we'll have our student representatives. Up first, Miss Amelia from Central.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As today is the first day back from school after a long winter break, I don't have too many updates for you all tonight. There are a few activities over the break, including boys and girls basketball games. Some orchestra students also continued to play gigs at local places to give back to the community during the holiday season. Students throughout the district, including many from Central, helped put together gift bags for children in hospitals and folding t-shirts at Monument Health to raise awareness for the Tough Enough to Wear Pink campaign. Students also stayed engaged in finalizing college applications and preparing for the ACTs, which will be coming up in a few months. For upcoming activities, this Friday, there will be JV and varsity basketball games held at Central against Sioux Falls Jefferson. And this Saturday, there will be JV and varsity basketball against Sioux Falls Roosevelt. Now, if you don't like basketball, you can always come for the amazing pep band that's there. Would recommend. Central's debate team will also be attending a tournament on January 14th, and the Science Bowl teams will be competing in a local scrimmage at Stevens on January 18th. In the past, Science Bowl's actually only ever competed in Huron against mostly East River schools, so this tournament will be a way to increase West River schools' attendance in the state tournament and hopefully get more people going to nationals. Good luck there will also be L-State band auditions, which will be taking place on January 20th. And good luck to everyone participating in these activities. I look forward to seeing all of Central's wins and Stevens' losses. That was not written in the script, you guys. Anyway, in other news, huge congratulations to Central's Teacher of the Year, Mike McCulley. Mr. McCulley is a dedicated teacher, passionate leader who inspires students, mentors, colleagues, and strengthens our entire school community. As a longtime veteran of the freshman house, he sets a tone for success, earning the trust and respect of students and staff alike. Whether coaching athletes of all ages, improving grading practices, or supporting his fellow teachers, McCulley's dedication knows no bounds. He's not only an outstanding educator, but an extraordinary human being. I can't say that I personally have ever had the privilege of having Mr. McCulley as a teacher, but from what I've heard from my fellow students, they really enjoyed his class and getting to see him throughout the day. Congratulations to Mr. McCulley for this honor, and overall, Central has been doing very well giving back to the community while also taking some time to rest over break. Once a cobbler, always a cobbler. Thank you.
All right, board members, any comments, questions about that report? Mr. Swan.
Sorry about that. What does Mr. McCauley teach? Did I miss that?
I believe he teaches history, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Up next, Ms. Scott from Stevens High School.
Okay, good evening, everyone. As Amelia said, there's not much to update you all on this week because we're coming back from break, but it's wonderful to be back. To start off my report today, I'd like to mention that there is a boys varsity basketball game at 7 p.m. today, January 7th, and there are girls and boys varsity doubleheaders at Stevens High School on Friday, January 10th at 6:30 and 8 p.m. respectively. Feel free to come support our teams. To continue with sports, there are girls varsity wrestling duels at 4 p.m. on January 9th at Douglas High School. There is also a girls varsity wrestling tournament at Lyman High School in Presho on January 10th and a boys varsity invitational in Bismarck, North Dakota on January 10th as well. Next, congratulations to Talia Porter, Marita Kalahar, and Jacob Williams for being chosen as Stevens Raiders Athletes of the Week. Talia plays basketball, Marita wrestles, and Jacob also wrestles. And another congratulations to Opal Nelson and Tobin Porish for being chosen as the Stevens Raiders Performers of the Week. Opal is in concert choir, and Tobin is in both concert choir and a group called Singers. We are proud of all of our talented students. Speaking of the arts, Ms. Hafner chooses one advanced art piece presented at the showcase to frame and display in Stevens High School, the Advanced Art Showcase that was on December 10th a couple weeks ago. This year, she has chosen two terrific art pieces because they were just too good to pick between. One piece is Ebb and Flow by Jocelyn Johnson, and the second is A Study in Noir by Brianna Greenwald. I saw these pieces earlier today, and I'm so impressed by the talent displayed by these advanced art students, so wonderful job to them. And to end, our staff spotlight this week is Cynthia Bennett. Ms. Bennett has been an activity secretary at Stevens for 8 years. Before coming to Stevens, she worked at Robbinsdale and then Southwest. Ms. Bennett worked overseas for military intelligence in the Army and then decided to go into school administration because of her kids going to school. She is retiring soon and plans to take care of her 3-month-old granddaughter and volunteer at South Canyon Lutheran in her free time. Thank you, Ms. Bennett, for all you do. Congratulations on the retirement. We will miss you. That's all I have this week. Thank you, and go Raiders.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Scott. Board, any questions, comments about that report? Thank you so very,
Thank you for the report. I was just gonna say, I really like seeing the staff highlights as not necessarily teachers only. And I appreciate like seeing that broadly because we all talk about how it takes every single one of us. So I'm really appreciative of that.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, Ms. Barrientos from Rapid City Alternative Academy.
Hello. So for what I have for current events at RCAA, students of distinction, today I bring a short report but one filled with celebration. As I reported just before the winter break, Rapid City Alternative Academy celebrated the end of the second quarter with an all-school assembly. At the assembly, 5 students were named Rushmore Rotary Club's first semester students of distinction. Congratulations to Rory Jacobs, Nigel Richards, Grayson Hollowhorn, Chanel Rice, and our middle school student of distinction, Piper Miley. These learners were nominated by staff members, reviewed by committee, and selected for being distinct learners that exemplify our building's culture. In the same line of celebrations, I want to extend further words of affirmation to the Student Volunteer Award winners. I have had the honor of volunteering with Brody Gale from Rapid City Alternative Academy and can attest to his dedication. On behalf of the students at RCAA, congratulations. A quick reminder that the district-wide Feeding South Dakota School Food Pantry will be open next week, January 16th, after school from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the Votech Annex behind RCAA. More information will be posted on the district school media. Rapid City Alternative Academy houses many wraparound services to support the learners of our district. I have been taking a moment in my reports to highlight these services from time to time. I have shared about the YMCA Jumpstart Program and Feeding South Dakota's School Food Pantry. Today, I would like to share about the clothing closet at my school. The clothing closet is a free clothing thrift store available to learners of our school. Learners can take what they need for themselves and family at any time. It has been a great addition to supporting our learners, and this time of the year provides a lot of warm coats and to those that need them. This school year, the closet has given out more than 200 items, averaging 4 to 5 visits a week. A cool aspect of the clothing closet is who manages it. The graduating class of Rapid City High School from 1967 has continued a tradition of service and maintains the space every month. I want to offer a big public thank you to the class of 1967. Thanks for keeping your school spirit going. In closing, I remind you of our school-wide expectations at Rapid City Alternative Academy. Be respectful, be present, be courageous. I would also like to wish you all happy winter break, I hope you had a happy winter break and hope you all find some rest and joy.
All right, thank you. Board members, any question? Thank you. That was an awesome report. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Urban.
I'm sorry if I missed it, but how can people donate to the clothing closet? Are you guys looking for donations?
We could take donations. You could just drop them off anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I like to volunteer in my wife's closet. I don't think she's watching right now, so I'm good for a little bit. Thank you for that. Thank you for that report. All right, acting superintendent report. I teased that he was a diva, but no, that was Mr. Sassy. Was the diva. So Dr. Strasser, all right, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, board again, and a few notes for you. So today our district director is engaged in organizational excellence work and with student education. This centered on primarily on 2 areas, and these 2 areas were an outcome of the district service survey that we conducted in November. So those 2 areas were around timeliness and accessibility, and we did a lot of work trying to bring clarity after hearing from our principals and our managers and going through the feedback process there, so that we can improve and figure out what better really looks like in those 2 areas. So that was a big chunk of our work today, followed by finishing the day with our pillar champion work. And a lot of that work from there you'll see brought forth in the mid-year review, which we'll do at the February study session. So a lot of good things going on today there. Want to let you know I'm working on finalizing some recommended changes on the 25-26 calendar. I hope to bring that to you at the next meeting. The big change would be moving graduation up a week from May 31st to May 24th. So I just about have that ready, and we'll bring that to you again, hopefully at the next meeting. You're all aware that continuing with organizational excellence, that Casey Bukoviak is here to work with us later tonight. So we're really excited to have her continue on and move from the directors to work with you all. And last thing I have, I want to introduce Ms. Kit Fife. And maybe at least stand and come forward here. So Kit is our new Director of Positive School Climate and Culture. Kit started last week and she's getting acclimated. I've introduced her to a lot of people and I know she's introduced herself to quite a few other people as well. And not only getting acclimated to people, but getting acclimated to the work. And we know that the bulk of her work is around the Civil Rights Agreement and what goes in implementing that. Kit is originally from Dupree, if I got that right. I don't want to mess this up for you. And she's held various leadership and administrative roles in her career, most recently at Takini School District. So we are super excited and she was a part of our work today as directors. She can be found on 7th floor here at RCEC. And I don't know if you want to add anything else, but.
Good evening. I don't need to add anything else, and I'm excited to be here and to be a part of the system for student success.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Fife, for joining the district. We're looking forward to working with you. And if there's anything, usually I'm not supposed to speak to for the board, but I'm safe in saying if there's anything that you need from any one of us, we'll be happy to assist you in doing your work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board member comments? Okay, thank you.
And that's my report.
Okay.
So you have questions for me?
Board members, any questions on Dr. Strasser's report? Okay. Now we'll hear from our local diva.
I appreciate the board waiting
No,
on you.
I'm just
No.
kidding. He was
No.
dropping off kids and babysitting duties and I'm just giving him a hard time.
It's okay. I take a good ribbing. I take no offense. Thank you, sir. President Carr was gonna use tonight to really pull the air out of the room and talk state aid, given Mrs. Bokowiak's presence, and we're excited to have her work with the board. I'm gonna pass on that until next meeting. So I'll yield my time unless there are any specific questions for me at this point.
Board members, any questions for? Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Clapham.
This is kind of a reminder for me and for the public, when is kind of the preliminary budget? When do you usually do the first presentation? Is that March or a little later?
March.
Okay.
Preliminary budget has to be presented by the first regular meeting in March.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other board? All right, thank you, Mr. Sassy.
Yes, sir.
There are no conflicts of interest. I will entertain a motion. Is there any proposed agreement that a board member would like to pull? Right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed agreements.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the proposed agreements signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. All right, any item of the consent agenda a board member would like to pull? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Right, item number 14. Mrs. Donovan is going to talk to us about course guidebooks tonight.
Yes, I am here that you guys have them. I know Mr. Berkland updated from the instructional council, so I'm here to answer any questions if you have anything regarding the course guidebooks tonight.
Any questions, comments, suggestions, jokes? I guess at this point, we got plenty of time. Okay, seeing no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right then. At this point, we're at committee reports. Which might be light too since the break. All right, Ms. Urban.
I was just gonna say that most of mine are all this week. My meetings are coming up, so I gave reports at the last
Okay,
meeting.
all right. Any other,
I think the only thing we know for community outreach that we have, we're starting our meetings with, high schools will be at, Stevens on Wednesday, we'll be at RCAA on Friday. And we're still working on our schedule with Central, but we're excited to get feedback from students, so that's coming up soon, and that was mainly what we discussed in our December committee meetings for
Okay.
outreach. Oh, one other one.
yes, go ahead.
From ASBSD, I just had to remind myself, if you're not signed up as a legislative action, a land member, please do. Just you will get kind of a live stream of updates of what the status is on, bills that are really important to education. It'll also give you an invite to the weekly discussions. And I was really last year able to connect with some people from different districts and have some good meaningful conversations. So even if you only are able to jump on one during the session, or you just want to listen in, or I find it very beneficial. So it's really beneficial to us if everybody on the board could register for the land. So it's still, if you go back in your email and just type in capital LAN, it'll bring up the email where you can click on that link. So just encourage everybody to join the Legislative Action Network.
I signed up for it, but I didn't get any notice of.
I will ask Tyler if there's anything specific. I will check in on that. Okay. I will ask.
Any other committee reports? Mr. Berkman?
Yes, there was a Title VI Parent Advisory Council meeting. I cannot find my notes from it. And it was before break. But I do remember, Director Roberts presented on the report card, pretty much same presentation we got.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was the main thing. And there's nothing else sticking in my brain. And I think the others that were there already left. You were there. Anything else I forgot? Yeah, you were there. I should just have you report on this every time. Anything I forgot? But I think that was the main thing. And feel free to add if there was anything else.
All right, thank you very much. Any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, we're at other. Any other?
My Zoom won't open, so I can't raise my hand right now.
Well, go ahead.
So I'm just raising my hand. I have no idea what I look like on Zoom. It's a mess. Just a very quick other. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jay Clement. He just did myself and my family a huge favor. He took time out of his break. Very brief backstory. A lot of people know my father-in-law worked for this district for over 30 years, and he started his career at South. And it was a really important thing for his widow and his daughter to be able to see the new South. So Jade came out on a cold day on his time off and gave us the full tour and showed us all the things. And it just really meant a lot to us and to our family. So I'm really appreciative of Jade. He works so hard and he has such excitement for the building and how great it is for students. And so I just wanted to publicly thank him for that.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else, any other? I do have one that I did remember from exec meeting that we were talking about, getting ready to talk about. We're in our legislative season, and obviously the biggest hot topic that affects the district is school vouchers, or however you're talking about it. And so the board is going to go into discussions, I think next week, about whether we are going to make a public statement or what we're going to, how we're going to respond to that subject. So board members, if between now and then you can kind of get your thoughts and feelings together, we will either come out or not come out with a statement. And I think the most important thing that I want to relay and try to communicate, and I will do it as often as I can, is the fact that we're not against any other type of alternative education. I think each family chooses for themselves what works best for each family. The only thing that we're doing is advocating for public education. And so we'll try to continue to make that message loud and clear, that we're not drawing any battle lines or, against anything. We're just for public education. So those discussions will be coming up. Did I say it right?
I think so. I just want to clarify. So the, especially for new board members, I think the idea would be to have a formal resolution, which we would actually have to vote on the text of that resolution. So I think it would be on the agenda and everyone could read it and obviously choose. But if there's something I said, when it's sent out, like if there's language or certain wording or something that we, need to kind of discuss or someone feels very strongly about, then make sure about with that, but that would be how our formal statement would be made in a resolution.
Right. Anybody else about that subject? My other is January 20th is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and our church sponsors an event at right now it's the Rapid City Holiday Inn, but it's going to be changed to the Hilton DoubleTree. And I was honest with Dr. Strasser. I don't know what buildings are doing right now to educate our students on that day and why they have the day off. But if I can be in any assistance to that, that would be great. Also, it's an opportunity, teachers, if you want to give students extra credit and they come to the event, I will sign whatever documentation to let you know that that they were there. But I just think it's a educational opportunity for our district and our students. So, all right, that's all I had for others. Any other person with an other? All right, I don't know what to do. I'm discombobulated. It's only 6:10. Okay. All right. I know I am enjoying it. Organizational excellence by Dr. Please pronounce your last name.
Blahoviak.
Blahoviak. All right.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, and please feel free to call me Casey. That is no worries whatsoever. I think I'm okay to stand, Shirley, but thank you for the offer. That was really kind. Yeah, thank you. Corey, did you want to do any introduction or are you good for me to start?
So as we look at just different levels of leadership, board leadership obviously is very important. And in order to support your work, we've obviously worked with Casey in specifically with the directors in carrying out the strategic plan, but you also have a very important role in the strategic plan and as leaders in our district. So we want to provide levels of support and high quality thinking around how you can be the best board leaders that you can. So that's kind of the way we've approached this and just trying to support you through this, through your work as board members. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
As I said earlier, Casey was with us all day. So it's a super long day, but I think we've had a lot of just outstanding conversation and dialogue about how we're moving on our pillars. And she's been instrumental in pushing and challenging us, and hopefully does the same with you all.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I have had the honor and privilege to meet many of you around the board table, but not all of you. My name is Casey Blahoviak, and as you've heard, I have the just great privilege to serve your district as your coach from Studer Education. We are in about a year and a quarter to a year and a half of our partnership together. We were just privileged in the beginning of that partnership to come alongside you all and help facilitate the development of your current strategic plan with a vast amount of community engagement. And then our work together has continued alongside your leadership team. I have the main priority of working with your district leaders in the execution of both strategy and culture tactics. One of my really skilled colleagues works with your building principals and directors that most closely work with those individuals in your system. So we're just really honored in the trust that you've put in us to be able to help your organization continue to be the great place it is and get better every single day. And so the work that we did today and that we'll do a bit with you this evening really has elements of what we at Studer Education call our 9 principles or our foundational beliefs. And so the intent of sharing that wheel with you tonight is by no means that there is an expectation I'm going to read all of those to you or that we'll become experts on all of them. But I'd invite you, just as we take a really broad stroke there, to recognize in our leadership development approach, we recognize we both need to drive to better outcomes for our community and those that we serve. But we also have an opportunity and quite honestly, an expectation to improve the culture in which our students experience their learning, our staff experiences their great execution of skills in their areas, and our families and communities experience that as well. And so you see that those foundational beliefs talk about measuring the important things. They talk about engaging our employees. They talk about recognizing and rewarding success. And you'll see elements of all of those in the work that we do this evening with you on some leadership development, very similar to what leaders in your district have experienced with us in our time together. So here are our session outcomes as we planned for what we hope will be a valuable experience for you as a leader from the board table. The team here knows very well, we always start with a connect to purpose, an opportunity just to do a bit of reflection and quite honestly, tonight will be a chance to celebrate your coming together and work as a board. We'll spend a bit of time talking about a concept that's called the rider and the elephant and how that plays into leadership, how we navigate bringing an organization along a path towards excellence. And there'll be an opportunity at number 3 for us to dig in and have a bit of discussion around what does it look like from the board table to then to align our behaviors with those goals and values that you have as an organization, and an opportunity at the very end for some next action and feedback. But there will be a lot of opportunity throughout for feedback from you, getting some thoughts from you, asking you to share some application of what we're looking at. So your team knows here, there's no sit and get when it comes to Studer Education, and we're rolling a little bit early into this. So we'll have some time to chat and won't have to cut any of that short. So for the Connect to Purpose tonight, and maybe an opportunity for me just to be reintroduced and introduced to some of the newer board members, I'd love to pose the question for you as you consider yourself as a school board here in Rapid City area schools. What do you see as your greatest strength as a board that you all should increasingly leverage to help the district achieve its strategic plan goals? What's a strength you have as a board that's really important for you to leverage? Jamie, I see you going for your mic. And then,
I haven't started to raise my
okay.
hand.
That's your tell that you
I've
want to
kind of given
speak.
up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it just immediately came to mind, and also I have a mom brain that things last about like 5 seconds a lot of the time. But I think on this board that we have, like, obviously we have to represent different geographic areas, but I think we just represent a lot of different spaces in the community. Like, I feel like all 7 of us have reach and depth and places that the other ones don't have, which I think can be really powerful when we're talking about like, well, how do we reach people outside of the district? How do we reach, you know, retired people? How do we reach the faith community? How reach, I think we have a lot of ways of connection that we haven't always had, which I think can be very powerful and beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. All of the different spaces that you all find yourself within Rapid City area boundaries. Thank you. Katie, did you want to share?
Thank you. Yes, I was just going to say, I think every single one of us is on here for the right reason. Nobody ran on one issue. We're here because we care about kids and we care about this community and this district. So I think that's really important, and you don't always see that with boards. Sometimes there's some very specific political reasons as to why they're on a board, and that's not the case with, I don't think, any of us.
Yeah, students at the center of really the work that you're doing. Excellent. Thank you. Who else? Michael?
I think we show up, we try our best to be at things. We were just having discussion before our board photo, trying to figure out how we can get everyone to a committee. And that's historically, even the past 3 years that I've been on the board has not always been the case, that there's that much willingness and that much want to be involved and to be there. And I think that's kind of like the first step is showing up and being informed. So I think we can really move forward with that.
Oh, that's great to celebrate and also to work together on who can be there so we can show that presence as a board. Thank you.
I think I'd like to combine both of their comments in the fact that I think each and every one of us are passionate about education. And because of that passion, we don't just sit behind the dais until the next board meeting. But Michael said, we're a very active board, being in the district, being in, all the different activities and sports and just being all in the district. I think it's a strength.
Yeah, you're connecting with folks that are close to the work, we would say, in the improvement world. So thank you for that. Christine, do you mind? I should ask, is there something you would like to share? I don't want to make an assumption.
Because, in addition to what other people said, I think that this is, one thing I appreciate about this board is I feel like all of the members are really respectful of each other and respectful of the staff and the community and the staff, the administrative staff that we work closely with, and the rest of the district. I think there's a big acknowledgement that a lot of work is being done, and we're appreciative of that. And even amongst other board members, we're all doing a lot in our lives, and we're respectful and appreciative of that too. So I think that's something I really think, I don't know how to leverage that, but I hope that the respect that we have for each other and for staff gains us some amount of respect, that there might be a little bit more trust there when we have to make hard decisions.
Yeah, I might call that, Christine, or we would call that at Studer Education, being a people first organization or a team of leaders that are people first. We recognize what we each bring to that, and we seek those opportunities to make our organization better for those that we serve. Yeah, thank you. Walter, would you like to add anything? Okay, nice to see you again, sir. And Donna, I don't think we've met. Would you like to share anything? Okay, all right, you're welcome. So really that opportunity to just leverage those strengths that we have and continue to build tonight our individual and collective leadership skills as a board team. Could you advance it one for me, Bobby? For some reason it's not working. Maybe it froze. There we go. All right. So one of the principles that we'd like to share this evening, and one that will kind of be a thread as we go through our time together, one that your leaders in the district here have seen, that our founder of Studer Education, Dr. Janet Pilcher, talks about in her book, Hardwiring Excellence in Education, is this idea of the rider and the elephant. It's done from a psychological study in the 1980s, but what it really talks about is what we as leaders have to navigate in organizations when we are moving in a direction of a desired outcome. So the rider and the elephant offers us a couple of things to think about. And my first question for you is, as you look at that rider and the elephant on the path, who's really in control there?
Is this a trick question?
Well, what do you, maybe not. Christine, what did you offer? The elephant? What makes you say that? It's more powerful. It's bigger, right? The idea for us as leaders around this idea of the rider and the elephant is that, first of all, we're on a path, right? As leaders in an organization, you all have a strategic plan that's in place. There are priorities that you all are working towards that were entirely contributed by your community. That path of what you're aiming to accomplish has been set. As leaders, we're moving this rider and the elephant, our organization, down the path. The rider is our logical mind, right? We know there's certain changes that need to happen. There's certain things that we have to do to accomplish these outcomes. The elephant are the emotions that come along with those changes. So let's think about that for a second. Christine was right on when she said the elephant is really in control and could pull the rider off of that path or that direction where we're trying to go as an organization. So my logical mind, it might make sense that we need to make some changes. Our system is perfectly aligned to be getting the outcomes that it's getting. We logically understand that. When it comes to what does that mean for me and my work and how I function, change is scary. And our emotions sometimes come up and that can pull us off of the path. So as leaders, one of the things that we work on is how do we balance both the logical and the emotional side of our organizations to help folks move along the path with us. So with that in mind, thank you, Bobby. Okay. I'd like you to read this quote from Peter Senge. And he offers us some elements to think about what makes a difference in organizations. Thank you. When we're seeking to make change. So I'd invite you to read those 4 or 5 sentences. What, if anything, resonates or jumps out at you as you read that? Yeah, Katie.
I think it seems really obvious that we should put relationships first. And that's really what this says to me. But I think it doesn't happen as often as it needs to.
Yeah, so good. A lot of times when we work with leaders and certainly part of some of the conversations we've talked about today, it's like how this knowing doing gap. We know relationships matter and how are we really intentional about building those, right? They don't happen by chance. Yeah, really good, right? Relationships in organizations of any size matter and we need to cultivate those. Thank you. Anything else stand out? Yeah, Jamie.
Just really that policies and rules didn't create current challenges nor they eliminate them. I think sometimes as a board, because one of our main jobs is create policy. And I think people approach us and say, we need a policy. This policy needs to change. We need to, and it's the same thing. I have a good friend who's a legislator. He said, everybody thinks you need to make a law to fix everything. And I think sometimes in the seat, because that's where our power is, for lack of a better word, well, we need a policy for that. And I think to like peel back and say, is a policy really what's going to fix it? Because I think it's easy to get caught in that trap.
Yeah, really good, right? And it's really about this, the way that folks act and interact with one another that really becomes who you are as an organization. Yeah, it's easy to fall back on some of those pieces. We need them, no doubt. That's not what Peter Senge is suggesting here, right? But it can't be the only thing that we do as an organization. Anything else jump out at you?
Mr. Swan?
I'm sorry. I can't see the hands up, so my apologies on that. Yeah, thank you.
I think the one thing that resonates with me is the true source of success and barriers are the mental models embraced in relationships developed at every level.
Yeah.
I think it has to be, I don't know how to say this, but like an inter-level relationships versus just at that level. Coy and Corey can have the greatest relationship, but if they don't have a relationship with, say with somebody else that's at the building level, then it's really hard for somebody at the building level to see the success they're having and vice versa.
Absolutely, absolutely, right? It needs to extend or cascade throughout an organization. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Anything else that resonated? Yes, ma'am.
Just one, I had a conversation with a principal who's doing a really great job, and I said, like, everybody talks about how great you are. What are you doing?
Mhm.
And he said, I just listen to people. I just have relationships with people. And I'm like, man, that's really simple. I don't know why we can't all figure that out. But I was looking for some like deep, what is going on? And it was just like, I just like people and I just talk to them. And so thought, wow, you've
Yeah.
made these massive changes in your school and it's all because you're just a people person.
Yes. And so Katie, one thing I would offer to that, and the leaders in the room will know what I'm referring to. One of the slides that they oftentimes see us talk about in our grounding during our time together, it sort of places strategy and culture parallel to one another. So I'm sure that's a great school because there are goals that they're working towards and outcomes and high expectations for students. But we can't just achieve those because we place them on the wall or because we declare we want to reach certain percentage of proficiency in whatever this year, right? We're also doing some really intentional things about listening to folks. What's working for you? What barriers are you running into? What did you learn that more people should know about, right? Really thinking about how to build all of those intentionally is the difference maker, right? Really good. Yes, ma'am. Christine.
I just, as I'm sitting here thinking, it's, you know, relationships seem to be the key to everything in life. And, you know, the more you read, you're like, oh, we're in an epidemic of loneliness. I mean, this is not just a school district thing. This is where we live in a world where like real, genuine relationships take a little bit more work and they aren't happening at the frequency that they used to. And I just think it makes the job, it's such a hard job, because like building relationships in this, you know, in this day and age is just, we're all a little bit disjointed and it's such a hard job. And I could see the worry being, well, if we focus on relationship building, then we're gonna lose the focus on, you know, literacy and like the bread and butter. It just strikes me, because I think a lot about, you know, mental health and suicide prevention, violence prevention, and everything says relationships, but they talk about why these things are going up is because relationships are harder.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Absolutely, right? That, and what I appreciate about that is it's important and we have to be intentional to build them. What we're gonna offer you this evening are some ways and some strategies. How do we navigate building relationships, acknowledging the community that you serve, and doing that in an organization where you have some strategic priorities that you're working towards, where you're sometimes in tricky situations where you're a member of the board and you're hearing information and you're building relationships. And how do I navigate all of that in a way that allows our organization to move forward? And it's not as easy as it sounds. And that's why I really applaud you all to really pause early in your new term together as a board to think about how can we learn and grow in these particular areas together.
Casey?
Yes,
I
sir.
think going back even to question one, in this board particular, that our relationship with each other is something that we can leverage. I can have a personal conversation with everyone, and as far as I know, everyone can. Haven't heard any tea spilt about, you know, situations. Walt and I kind of have a little situations we were sharing a boo with each other, but we've worked it out. But that really is powerful. And the reason why I say that, because people have come up to me and said that previous boards were not that way. And so it causes me to appreciate our personal relationship. Now, I'm not giving anybody my car, but you know, I think we're a close board, actually.
Thank you for highlighting that and kind of pulling that thread through in terms of what's already working. Could you advance it, Bobby? That's all right. I'll just ask you to do best laid plans here. All right. So we're going to now start to shift a little bit in terms of if those are the things that are important to us, how do we start to develop and deepen some tactics around aligning those behaviors with our goals and values? We want to build relationships, and we also know we have some priorities for improved outcomes in your organization. So with that in mind, here's the next invitation. Let's take a look at, there's two sets of kind of descriptors. One would be present in a culture of progress, and the other set would be present in what would be maybe a culture of blame in an organization. Take a read through those, and then I'm going to ask you what you notice.
I think something we talk about
for it.
often in the district, we talk about communication and information and looking at the differences between like intentional communication, information flow, and that's something that's risen to the top in a lot of conversations about challenges we face. What we want to improve is communication and information flow in the district and how we can make that better.
Absolutely, right? And in a culture of progress, it's intentional, we're being thoughtful about it. In a culture of blame, it feels very left to chance and isolated, right? Those differences that you notice there. What else do you notice about those two paired against one another?
I think the culture of progress, you have a sense of cohesion and they're working as a group. Where the culture of blame, there's individuals, there are pockets of sex and, you know, people doing their own thing.
Absolutely, right? In that culture of progress, you know, the second thing that you notice there under relationships is clear, meaningful goals. I know that members of the board that have been with us in previous opportunities to be together, you've seen that arrow slide, right? All of our arrows moving in a lot of different directions as you start to identify what matters most for you as an organization. Your efforts become more aligned. You know what's working, you know what's not, you know what to replicate. What else do you notice between those two? Katie?
It seems like in a culture of progress, there's more of an assumption of positive intention.
What makes you say that? Could you unpack that a little bit?
Let's see, which one maybe? I think like everyday actions are a source of learning, what is working, what isn't, versus blame and shame. It's coming at it from, I believe you have good intentions and not, people don't feel attacked.
Yeah. I wonder if another way to maybe look at it, like in a culture of progress, there's this curiosity, right? We are using our best information, what research tells us, what our experience tells us, we're actioning towards change. And even if it doesn't work, we've learned something, we know how to adjust, and we're curious about that learning. Yeah, really good. Walter.
I think the one thing that it resonates with me is the feedback and data are valued, whereas information is hidden out of fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I think that we do is that we share a lot of information between each other, data, and then, you know, it's not hidden from anybody. If there's conversations going on, we know, you know what I mean? And it's just one of those things where I think that's, we don't hide a lot of things. And I think this board has been very transparent and we've been very open in what we do in the public, and you know, not a lot changes from, you know, from the intentions that we have in our own conversations to what you see here, because I think it's authentic and I think it's genuine.
Yeah. And that fear can be hugely impacting to an organization, right? Fear to share that we tried something and it didn't work, and how is that received, and what does it look like when we share that information, and certainly not helpful, right? Fear is not helpful in an organization or any group. All right, can you go? Try it one more time. Yes, ma'am. Hey, all right, so as you all as a board continue on your journey from your board level governance around that continuous improvement approach, you heard Dr. Strasser already this evening talk about your upcoming mid-year scorecard report coming to you in mid-February, I believe. One of the things that we at Studer Education have found helpful is to sometimes equip boards with some question stems that really help you live. I hope that works for me to go back. There we go. That help us live and move forward that culture of progress, but also allows you as a board to understand from your level of governance what's working. If results are not trending in the right direction, what are we learning and how are we quickly adjusting? And so you'll notice those questions are not particularly complex questions, but they are really focused on, you'll see learn in the beginning of both of those. When things are working and we're making progress, for you to have that continued assurance as a board, if our results are trending in the right direction, it's not by chance. What did you learn over that last cycle? And specifically, what's making a positive difference? Because what your leadership team is really digging into are improvement science tools and approaches where they're identifying their change efforts. So they know what they're putting in place, and they're going to be able to share with you those things that are making a positive difference, or if not, what adjustments they're making going into the next cycle. You'll notice in that progress area, that last question really invites you as a board to understand if something's working, are we spreading that? What's our next action to get those working strategies in more parts of our organization? And as you take a look at the right-hand side of that slide, those questions may be helpful to you as you continue from your board level governance. Not every run chart goes up continuously, right? We're going to try things, we're going to hit bumps, we're going to learn, but really for you to have that assurance, what did we learn? What effort can we celebrate? Because that's what happens in a progress or a culture of progress. We are not just leaving things as they are. We are making concerted efforts for improvements. What adjustments are you making as you go into that next short cycle? Do you have the resources you need? And what support might you need to continue problem solving in that area? So offered for you if they're helpful in your toolbox as you start to prepare for that opportunity with the leadership team in mid-February. So let's take a moment and reflect here a little bit. Much of what we've been talking about recently in our time together tonight has been sort of focused on asking questions about improvement and maybe some more prepared kind of board reports or interactions that you have. But you all also do a lot of informal interactions, and you have the opportunity at the board table to interact with members of your community on a range of different topics. And so to just start thinking about in those situations and how we may or may not contribute to a culture of progress or a culture of blame, I'm going to invite us to reflect on those 2 bullet points there. And maybe put yourself in the role of a staff member in Rapid City area schools. So imagine that they're receiving a message from someone that says, a member of the board has called. or they're watching a board meeting and they hear a discussion about a program that maybe they support or contribute to in some way, and there was no notice, or maybe it came up in public comments and they didn't know it was going to be discussed. What do you imagine might be something that staff member is thinking about? What might be going through their heads?
For me, from a historical point, when I started going to buildings, people were surprised that a board member is here at the building, and visiting and asking questions, to where now I don't think so much because of our activity. If they heard a board member called or a board member's coming, I think there'd be less anxiety to that information, I think.
Do you think there could be a little anxiety?
I don't know.
I think it depends.
I'm in class, I'm scared.
It depends, yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's not a good joke always. Yeah. Yeah.
You know. They know. So
Yeah.
it's just like, you know, hey, he's got, what's going on today? You know, it's not like you have, you know, eggs that, oh, yeah. This is it. If we don't build those relationships with this, we all from where we're elected to translate that down into, I shouldn't say down, but into the building. And we're not doing our job. So I think that's important. You know, with the car seat.
Yeah.
Just.
Yep.
And going, you know, it's incredible. You go to a football game, there's Michael, he's putting the band together, you know what I mean? He's they're getting their hats, making sure their uniforms are good, you know, and he doesn't need to do that.
Yeah.
There he is, contributing, you know what I mean? There's Walt Swan, eating popcorn. Helping that fish, you know, it's all contributing, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you all clearly as a board, not only from what you're sharing with me tonight, but what the executive leaders have shared, have really made it a priority to be out in the community and in spaces where students are, where staff are, where families, caregivers, your community are. Likely, despite your best efforts, there's members in your community you have not yet met. And to them, you might be a board member that is committed to public service, but a board member nonetheless. And you've got great people here in Rapid City area schools that want to do the right thing. They want to do the very best work. And sometimes positionality has an impact that is unintended. Michael, you're kind of smiling a little bit. Is there something you want to offer
No,
maybe?
Just, as Christine had already kind of said it before, like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we do still quote unquote outrank them. So no matter how great we are, no matter how much we're out there, we're still, especially you guys, we're still your boss. And so there is still that little bit of like, oh, it's my boss.
Yeah.
And that just, I don't think that ever really goes entirely away. Like,
Yeah.
as Walt said, and as Bishop Carr said, like, yeah, it's great. We have great relationships, but at the end of the day, there is always that like, little bit of, okay, why?
Fair enough, right? And I think that's a very real thing that may happen, right? Katie, did you want to offer something?
I think the worry, I mean, there's 1,800 staff members in this district and 12,000 plus families. Of course, we don't know everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that there's going to be a little bit of worry for some folks, but I hope that I'm not just blind to this, but I really do think this board is different. It's certainly different than any board that I had witnessed when I had worked for the district. I think we know a lot of people, and most people I don't really feel are super uncomfortable. I mean, and that's my perception, just because I do get a lot of parents that'll stop me or staff that'll stop me in the hallway, and they have no problem telling me things that they're concerned about. So I think we're pretty approachable, and that certainly helps, but
Yeah.
I know that that's not,
Yeah.
we don't know everyone, so.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I really appreciate you highlighting sort of what you've seen transpire in your time and connections here in the school district. And so I think what I'd invite you maybe more than anything to think about is your focus on relationships is really important and it matters. But you also have people here, to Michael's point, right, that you are members of a board and may not have had a chance to interact with you personally yet. And it may be different to share feedback to you than when they hear a member of the board called and was asking something about them or speaking about a program that they're maybe connected to. So just to kind of think about some of the nuances of how that communication might flow, because most certainly your intention is really positive. When you are maybe inquiring or you're making a call to a principal or have an opportunity to stop in and ask about something, your intent is really positive, right? It's what you mean to accomplish. You want to support something. You want to be able to tell other community members about it. Someone, one of your constituents asked about something and you didn't necessarily feel equipped with that information to answer about that. The impact of those questions, the comments, the commitments, that's also something that we have to own as a board. And so that's where we're going to kind of wrestle a little bit with a couple of scenarios that we're going to ask you to engage with. Your positive intent to move the organization forward and how we as board members interacting, sometimes in building relationships, sometimes those conversations can have an unintended impact that you may choose to consider as you move forward. So let's consider this as we prepare to look at a couple of scenarios. So really thinking about you as a board and your role with the staff. It can sometimes, as we interact with staff or members of the community, there can sometimes be some role conflation, right? And so for you as a board, I think Mr. Swan already pointed it out, right? Or that essentially you have a few employees as a board. Your acting superintendent, your CFO, I believe maybe also here, your district attorney reports directly to you as a board. Beyond that, those skilled folks direct the rest of the staff within the organization. And so sometimes our desire to get involved and to connect deeply with staff, there can sometimes be some role conflation there. Is the board directing the staff, or is the superintendent and other executive leaders directing the staff, right? Intent is to know what's going on and understand the community. Impact can sometimes get a little muddied there, right? As a board, most certainly I've heard the great reports that you all receive in that intentional communication, but by the reality of the work that you all do, you are likely not aware of all of the messages that go out to staff from district, from their building principals, and there's sometimes a gap in that information that you may have just by the nature of how things work in a large organization. And then while you certainly have done absolutely great work to build those relationships, being a member of a board does have some positionality. And there are some that may perceive sometimes some questions that you might ask or some conversation that you might engage in. When you really want to share your intention is care and concern, they might perceive that as some pressure to move in one direction or another. So just some things to think about as you continue that real focus on how do I engage with the community in a way that allows us to keep on the path. We've got the rider and the elephant, we've got logic and emotion, and you are a connected board out there. Are you willing to try a couple of scenarios of how to respond?
Sure.
Oh, thank you. You were back in the top of the class, Bishop Carr. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay, but before we do that, I want to hear from you a little bit. Considering all of that, what might make this work from a board level, interacting with our community, thinking about our positionality, knowing we want to improve the organization, and that you've got great skilled people, layers closer to the work, embedded in that every day? What makes this so tricky?
I think part of it is, and I think President Carr uses this terminology a lot, and I felt it myself, is that we all wear a lot of hats. So I can be in a discussion about something and I'm truly discussing it as I'm a parent of a third grader. However, the person talking to me sees it as, but you're the board member that has a third, even if the two are completely not linked. And I try very intentionally, like, I never email the principal, the teacher from my board email. I email from my personal email. If it's a question, I had a transportation question today. I didn't email it from my board email because that comes across, I think. But even if I'm trying to take off the hat, sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, well, you're on the board. You just know, like, but also sometimes I'm just a mom. Like, I'm just being a mom. And I think that gets hard for the community to understand that,
Yes.
like, even my personal feeling or opinion about something, like, I might be super frustrated about the same thing someone else does, but that's my opinion and stance as a parent. That's not necessarily what I'm saying as a boarder from the seat. And like they said, you try to take off the hat and sometimes people just kind of perma-glue it to you and there's not much you can do about it.
And you can't control that, right? But what I'm really hearing you say, Jamie, is there are some intentional things you do to try to divide that. Like I think that's so insightful, like cautious on, I'm using my personal email, my mom email, when I have a question about that. Those small things, folks notice those. And even though, like, to your point, like it's perma-glued on my hat, like I'm a board member, those things are noticed and that intention to that positive impact, I'm sure is appreciated. That would be my prediction on that. So what else makes this tricky? Yeah, Christine.
I'm saying this, implicating myself too. Nobody understands board governance. Like before I was elected onto the board, you don't know what board governance is. So they, you know, they come up and they tell, as a board member, you talk to somebody and they say, well, I really don't think we should be using this program in middle school. And you accept that information, but the implication is you should do something about it as a board member. And I don't act as an individual. I'm one of 7, and it's not the role of the 7 of us to say what program needs to be used in middle school. And that's a hard thing to communicate.
First of all, thank you for airing that in the space, right? You're interacting with folks. You have constituents that you've been called to public service. They're folks that care deeply about whatever concern they're bringing to you. You value their input, and then it's sort of like, now what do I do and what do I say and how do I acknowledge what's happening without making them feel that I'm brushing them off or overcommitting to something that's not within, beautifully said, not within my control as one member of a board that probably doesn't even, maybe in that case, you know, have the final say on something potentially, right? So it's super tricky. It's super tricky. Mr. Swan, you look like you want to say something.
I turned on my mic, Shirley.
Okay.
I think the one thing that makes this tricky is that when we get elected, we run on different platforms. We talk about school improvement. We talk about school safety. We do all of this, but we're not all experts on that. We want to learn. We want to make an improvement, but we're not experts. Not a single one of us here holds a certificate for school safety. Not one of us here, you know, has a certificate for school improvement. Not one of us really does all of that, I can exclude myself from some of those statements, but there are some of those things where we get elected and people think we're the experts on it. You know what I mean? Well, what do you think about, and it's, yeah, we can pass the ideas on. Again, we have 3 employees but we're not the experts. And I think that goes to Christine's point, and it's one of those things where we're like, yeah, we're not the experts, but we can certainly point you to those people.
Yeah.
And I think that's more of our position because I would rather have it answered by an expert in special education. I would rather have it answered by a school safety expert. I'd rather have it answered by Coy for finances, you know what I mean? Because he can explain it. And that's the thing that I value most, but it makes it tricky when you get elected. People think, well, you're getting elected because you're an expert. No, we're not. We're learning just as everybody else is. And that's the big piece is that I run across that a lot. You know what I mean? I run across that a lot.
Absolutely. That is also so well said around what makes all of this tricky. And you're engaging deeply in conversations with folks and you're curious. You want to know what their experiences are. But then what do we do with all of that information that we're gathering? And how do I pass that along? And how do I help the system learn and grow in a way that also recognizes the superior leaders that you have in this organization? Right?
I think
Yes,
what
sir.
makes it tricky too, well, Christine can talk to one constituent that says we shouldn't use the program. And then the next aisle over, the other constituent says that we shouldn't or should. So what is the majority? Should we or shouldn't we?
Yes.
And I actually had a real world incident on intent and impact. When we were going through our superintendent transition, I wanted to talk with the DDL leadership and let them know that as board president, we support you. We're here for you, whatever we could do. And then I got feedback that there might have been a feeling that I was micromanaging. So my intent, the impact didn't match my intent. So I've kind of just we have a concept going back upstairs and mind my own business and let the experts handle that. So
I appreciate you being open to feedback because it's a gift, right? Of how do we continue to get better there? And I think it's just, maybe that's a takeaway is just like that continued invitation to say, my intention is this. If I put myself in that other position, what might that impact be? What else might I need to consider to be able to make that move that I'm looking to do? So before we look at examples, I'm going to equip you with something. So stay on the edge of your seat for your examples. But because all of that is so tricky, one of the tactics that we coach leaders on at Studer Education is we call it leader stance. And you are all leaders. You're members of the board. You are leaders. When we're in these situations with folks where they're maybe sharing data with us, or we're talking about an experience or an adoption or a policy, leader stance first and foremost is a reminder to us to not get in a debate about the data or their lived experience. It invites us to listen with curiosity to understand what that experience or particular interpretation might be, to show gratitude for the passion and the care and concern that folks are bringing to us. But here's a spot where it can get tricky, right? In those conversations, to avoid agreeing or offering solutions until we're sure that the district can do that. One of the things we coach leaders on with leader stance is around their survey results rollout. And oftentimes, and you heard Corey talk about it, we get a lot of information about what better would look like, right? let's take this step, let's do this thing, let's make sure that we have this action step and that action step and all, you're like, that's a great idea. We'll start that tomorrow. Thank you for that. We're gonna get working on it. And you leave with a list of 37 things, right, that are not possible and sometimes not on that path of priority and direction when you really have an opportunity to pause and think afterwards. So it's just that reminder that I'm going to listen. And for you as a board, and as Mr. Swan mentioned, that opportunity to manage up, and I'll tell you what that means in a moment, to manage up the leaders in your organization and the skill and expertise that they bring to the roles that they have. So let me give you an example of what that might look like, right? Thank you for sharing. It helps me understand the situation a little better. I'm acknowledging you. It's helping me gain some information, right? I hear what you're saying. I'd like to take some time to reflect on how that aligns with our district's priorities. The last one is the idea of managing up. I'd like you to share or get in contact with Ms. Smith or whoever. They are a skilled leader and an asset to our team. I know that she would appreciate you reaching out to her directly. That last one is what we call managing up. It invites you, when you talk to constituents, parents, staff members, whoever it might be, to speak with confidence about the skills that you know your leaders have, and invite those individuals to have the conversation with the members of the team here, right? It's, if they're trusting you to have a conversation with, for you to say, I trust Corey and Coy and the members of our team, they're some of the best in the business. I know they would want to hear that from you directly, and I know they'll have an answer to share with you, right? That confidence in other members of your team really helps build a sense of trust and reassurance with those that you interact with. Yes, ma'am.
I think that's important, and I would say that oftentimes, or at least some of the time, when I'm hearing from constituents, it's because they haven't felt heard and they're frustrated.
Yeah.
And so I think with that, it's some sort of a warm handoff. So
Love
it's
it. Yes.
I'm going to introduce
Yep.
to you because they don't feel like they've
Yeah.
been heard.
Yes.
And so I know there's follow through.
Mhm. Absolutely. And if it comes back to they're trusting you to have this conversation and you're telling them, I trust the skill and expertise of this member of our team, it starts to kind of bring the temperature down a little bit, right?
And I don't want it to feel like I'm just pushing you off
ma'am.
again
Correct.
because that's usually what they've experienced.
Yeah, and that doesn't feel good, right?
Mhm.
And that's not your intention in doing that. But to Mr. Swan's point, you also know that you've got experts that are equipped in the organization to be able to provide that really detailed information. And then it allows you to not get in that tricky spot of, am I a parent? Am I a board member? What role am I having right now? It just gives you some ways to maybe equip yourself in those situations that can be a bit tricky. All right, now we're gonna practice. Sorry about the long buildup on that. All right, so I just have 3 of these. They'll be pretty quick, I promise. So let's say you're visiting a school, you meet Mr. Austin, who you know to be a veteran teacher at that particular school. He shares some positive stories about the work that his students are doing, the growth that they're experiencing. And then he says to you, you know, we are all doing this with less than adequate technology. And you share, I'm going to get in touch with our technology team and make sure you get what you need. Would that align with your goals and values as a board? And if not, what could you maybe say instead? Tricky situation.
I mean, I think the first half of the sentence, let me connect you with our IT director.
Mhm.
But as soon as you say, I'll make sure that, you just made a promise that you have no idea if you can actually keep. And then when you don't keep it, now the person has evidence to say, see, they
Yep.
told me they'd fix this and it never got fixed. So you can't ever make those, well, I'll be sure that. So I think if you say, and I usually try to say, and then put you in touch with these people, if you don't have any response in 7 business days, let me know so I can further investigate. I've never, one time, I think in 2 years, if I ever gotten a response saying, I never heard anything back. So I think if you say, you know, I'm confident that you could discuss this with this person or, but yeah, making the promise at the end is not
Tricky.
real helpful.
And it can be easy to do, folks. It can be really easy to do, right? Great teacher, result with kids. Let's get you what you need. Let's make that happen, right? But what are the priorities of the district? What are the materials that have been approved? All of those questions, right? Anyone have a different take on what you might say in that situation? How you might approach it?
Just maybe thank him and appreciate
Yeah.
him for how he's having success with what he has, even though he may not
So
have
nicely
enough.
done.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
using what you have to educate students
Yeah.
and, or, you know, I'm a techie too, so I might be the one to say, let me call Coy and see if we have any money, get this new technology. But yeah, but appreciate,
why we're
support him
practicing.
and appreciate him for what he's doing.
I love that, right? That despite the challenges you're facing, your results are really fantastic, right? So I'm sure if you share your requests through your district processes or your tech tickets or whatever it might be, that our skilled leaders will make sure if it's within our priorities, you'll get what you need, right? Yeah, really good. Not hard situations, but like just thinking about how might I handle that? What's going to have both the intent and the impact that I'm looking for here? What about this one? You're at a graduation ceremony, you run into Miss Jones and you say, oh my goodness, Miss Jones, it's so nice to finally meet you. Parents across the district are always telling me what a great teacher you are. Does that align with your goals and values as a board? Yeah, and Christine was looking at me waiting and I winked at her, so she knew it was okay to, heck yeah, right? Yeah.
Is that a trick question? No, trick.
Right? Some of these are really easy, right? Like that's an easy one. Of course, you hear, even tonight, the stories that you heard, the board reports that you receive, that type of gratitude, that's what's part of a culture of progress. We're recognizing that, we're sharing that, we're managing folks up. Absolutely things that would align with where you're going as an organization. How about this one? Last one. You're at a hardware store. A parent tells you about a negative interaction they had with a staff member. You acknowledge that and say, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Would you like me to help you talk to the superintendent about that? I know he'd want to hear it firsthand.
Maybe not so much.
What are your thoughts here? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking probably, you know, I've been an advocate of solving at the lowest level, you know what I mean? So it's like, before it gets to Corey, who have you talked to? You know what I mean? Really, it's like, yeah, is there, you know, what was the interaction, you know, what building was it in? Have you talked to the principal? Have you talked to, you know, cause it's just one of those things, it's, you know, you gotta say, well, you're gonna go straight to the top first. Let's try to de-escalate this at the
Yeah.
lowest level.
Yeah.
Because that's, yeah, I think that's giving everybody an opportunity to address it.
Yeah,
And if
really
there's more, you know, it does take a village, you know what I mean? It does with our educational community, you know? They have time to converse and have some conversation about how to solve this.
Absolutely.
Versus, you know, just saying, hey, I'm gonna get you in Dr. Strauss's office this afternoon. And if you don't reach him there, here's his phone number and his home address. That's what I would.
Right, so there's a couple layers that I kind of presented you with in that particular one, right? What does it look like to manage up those closest to the work, best equipped to help that particular parent navigate that situation, be it with the teacher, be it with the principal, and just start there and speak with confidence about what you know of your principal team. I know several of them were, or a few of them were here tonight. They interact with you all. You know them to be great professionals. Anything else you'd add to that one, Jamie?
I think this is a good opportunity to talk about intent and kind of intertwine and say, I'm really sorry to hear about that. I know as a district, we're really working on communication. It's possible that there's been a missed opportunity to communicate. So, you know, maybe this is an opportunity to connect with that teacher and principal and address something, to say, I've learned to flip something. This is an opportunity for us to do something perhaps better, or that it wasn't communicated correctly, or it wasn't, you know, and that's something that we are working on as a district. We want communication to be better. So say, this is an opportunity for us to improve communication. So if we work through the lowest level and make sure that communication is clear, then I think you also introduce the idea of this is what the district is working on. And without throwing teacher out, like, you know, this negative interaction, it may completely have just been miscommunication. We don't know because we weren't in the interaction. So I think you leave the opportunity not to say, yeah, that staff member is probably terrible. Like, you know, maybe, I'm sure their intent is to care for our students. And I believe that was their intent, though it may have been miscommunicated.
Yeah, right. Also that impact and intent, and thinking about having positive, what's the word I'm looking for? It's late in the day, so I'm sorry. Positive assumptions about all of the folks in our organization, right? Having positive intent. So, all right, really good. No more examples for you, but as we close, before I turn it back over to Dr. Strasser to close us out officially with this, I'm curious, is there anything as you're thinking about this, what does it look like from a board table to lead with, or from a mindset of organizational excellence? Anything circling in your mind, like a wondering that you're just kind of noodling on right now? Or is there something you want to hold on to from tonight's experience? Or was there something you experienced tonight that confirmed what you know to be true as a leader from the board table?
I think a hold on to is just, we talk about all the time, and obviously we have like personal opinions, we have things that we feel strongly about, but I think that remembering the intent and impact that even when we have an individual interaction with someone, whether we like it or not, it can actually impact all of us. Like if someone goes into a building and says, you know, well, I want to do, you know, like, this is very upsetting to me too. And I want to, what they hear is the board, now the board knows about this and they're upset. And you don't even realize in that moment that now all of us are caught in this. So, you know, 2 days later, when I get an email, I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize this was a problem. What are we talking about? And so carrying that sometime, like, we all want to be genuine. We want to be involved. We want to be present, but that everything we say, no matter how many times we say, well, that's my one opinion, what we say in the community and public, like, impacts all 7 of us. And we don't want to create discord, and we don't want to throw each other under the bus. So just being really aware of that impact that we have in every interaction we have.
Really insightful. Thank you for starting us off that way. Because you have so much positive going in terms of your relationships on the board right now. Really good.
Yeah, I think of what
Yeah.
confirmed what you know to be true is that being in this position is tricky. And we talked about a lot of things that this board is positive about, but one of the things that we struggle with is that relationship between a board member and a district. And I think sometimes our passion can work against us, because I think like the rest of us, when we hear a problem, boom, let's get it solved. You know, I have this phrase, bumping our gun, let's just do it, right? And that may not be the best approach. As Christine said, we're not in a position to solve that. It belongs to other people.
Yeah.
So that's, I know to be true, that it is very tricky balance.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing that, and that vulnerability of it's going to be tricky moving forward. But, you know, one of the things that we talk about when we coach leadership teams in districts is that's why we practice this type of work. It's not highly technical. It makes sense to us, right? Logically, we're a rider on an elephant ourselves. Logically, it makes sense to us, But our emotion, our excitement, our passion, our desire to be better can sometimes pull that rider and the elephant off the path a little bit. So we have to be mindful of it. Thank you for sharing that. Michael, do you want to offer something?
Yeah, I think the main reminder for me, and I try my best to do this, but sometimes I forget, is the leading with curiosity of like, tell me more about
Yeah,
that.
that's a great question.
What's going on there?
Yeah.
Cause sometimes you hear about, not usually negative, I don't usually hear a lot of negative things, but
Yeah.
some problem that's going on. And
Mhm.
like you said, I want to fix it instead of pausing and thinking about, why do I need to fix this? What is the process? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that was a good reminder to always lead with curiosity.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite statements or questions, like, tell me more, right? Just kind of opens the door. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily agreeing with you. I'm acknowledging you have something important to share, and I have time for you, right? Yeah, really good. Glad that made a difference for you. Anything else? Other thoughts? I'm good with wait time, but I won't let it get awkward. So as we kind of close out tonight, I didn't put a final slide on there, but certainly at Studer Education, your leadership team has heard me say, we eat our own cooking. We believe that feedback is a gift. And so I welcome any feedback that you have from me tonight on what worked, about the opportunity to be with you this evening, or if we are to come back at a next opportunity when I'm on site with you, what improvements we could make to sessions like this that help you all develop as a board. So things that worked that you'd love to see in the future learning sessions with us, or anything that you would like to offer as an improvement.
Oh.
Yeah, Christine.
This is just totally off the top of my head. Thank you for this. I really appreciate it. And I don't have, anything to offer. I'm going back to what's circling in my mind, and I'm thinking about, relationships and the multiple levels of relationships. And then, or the circles of relationship, like if we want to pass a bond, we have to have relationships with everybody in this town, and like if we want to increase enrollment and welcome more families into our district, we have to have better relationships, and that's just endless. But then, and so I'm just thinking about how do we prioritize, and what does a truly effective board look like, given how important building relationships is and how many other things there are to do, Yeah.
So I think one of the things I'm hearing you say is, as a board, maybe some continued development on how do you balance strategy, outcomes, goals potentially like bond, and culture? Like, how do you walk both of those side by side in maybe a little bit deeper of a dive?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I listening to everybody talk tonight and hearing myself talk, I think we have really focused on culture and relationships. I think what people are saying is true. But also we need to lead the district, like with it, but also there's like actual, I don't wanna, how do you balance that? Aside from just being like, what I hear this board be, which I think is really true, is a really grateful and acknowledging board, like people are doing hard work. We completely appreciate it, but I don't wanna be so focused on expressing appreciation and gratitude and miss like some real work that needs to be done that maybe requires leadership at the board level.
Absolutely.
To get it going. So it's just, that's what's circling in my mind.
Nope. And I think it's so on point, and it is a challenge not only at the board level, how do we do that? But that's, a year and a half of work that we've been doing with your executive leaders and your principals as well. Like, how do you balance that? Building relationships, driving towards outcomes. It's all about becoming an organization that's in that culture of progress, right? People don't change. You're not going to change things in an organization of blame and fear. And it's a balance, right? And so I'm hearing you say that might be an area to continue to bring back to you as a board for your own development. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
I think one of the things that I would like to know more about is board self-evaluations.
Okay.
We're gonna start doing that for the first time that I've heard of doing board evaluations. And we have a very unique and interesting voting system and pattern. And so in the past, I didn't see how it could work with the fluctuation of the board, but I mean, I'm assuming there's a way that we can do it. And so I'd like to know best practices of doing that.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. Corey, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, board, for engaging in this time with Casey's guidance. And I know that it's not always easy to process a lot of these questions. Frankly, I've been doing this since 8 a.m. and my brain is kind of mush at the moment.
I was wondering why y'all didn't have to answer any questions or anything.
All day long. Which is really good, but sometimes the lack of caffeine and that midday brain melt. But no, I think when we talk about organizational excellence, in order for us to really move in that positive direction, it happens at every single level, and you guys are super important as part of that. You just play an important role there. And I was very pleased with how you processed the information tonight. And I know sometimes things may seem simple, but sometimes they are very complex, and you identified both of those and everything in between. So in order for us to, I think, again, find success in our district, it comes from challenging our thinking, our thought process at every opportunity. And as noted at the very end, the balance of your role and responsibility is very tricky. So I appreciate your thinking, your openness. I do intend to bring Casey back. I think not just to work with the directors, Coy and myself, but hopefully to work with you again and maybe keep expanding and your thinking and challenging how you fulfill your role. So that's really all I have, unless you have anything, Mr. Sassy.
I think you said that super well, Corey. I just want to commend the board. I think one thing we can always guarantee when Casey comes in the best way is being really mentally drained at the end of the day because of all the great questions and feedback and thinking. And it's just so critical, like Corey said, to the development of the organization, the layers of relationships. I think after working directly with the board for 16 years, you all are just so integral to the, obviously the overall success of the organization, but what we do on a daily basis. And this type of work is something I think we often overlook because of the constant firefighting and thinking about the really day-to-day issues, but this is so important. And I really commend you for taking part, being engaged, and really doing a great job. So well done.
All right, Ms. Blahoviak, I want to thank you for coming. And even from the first time that I met you from the strategic planning meetings, I've been impressed. You've always been informative. You've always been kind and insightful. And so I appreciate, on behalf of the Studer, I hope we have a continued relationship. And again, as we can learn more and do more from you, we will certainly pull on that knowledge. So any board members, any other comments before we?
Thanks, Dr. Strasser, for setting this up.
Anybody else? All right. At this time, there's not even an executive session. So I will entertain a motion for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We won't ask about the no's. So, all right. Thank you, everyone.